abstraction in terms of cubism and all that. I mean, so I said, what I'm supposed to do, copy them, work all my life to try to become one of them, and even then I knew for sure that I could not achieve those heights because they had a very specific focus, and I would be just one of the copycats if I tried to follow them. So I had to do something new, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly and slowly some kind of signals came which gave me the direction to find my way, which involved geometry primarily.
Right.
And also the colors which were unusual, but they served my image, they served my vision, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And I shamelessly used them, and people were, I was sure that they would be horrified to see in a painting that kind of structure and that kind of, color combinations, very unusual, you see. But I went along.
Mm-hmm. And one of those signals you said was you were playing around with wooden squares, and you noticed that they looked a certain way when you put them together, and then you started drawing that and painting that. What was that experience like? Was that the major thing that made you realize?
No, you see, the basic thing, which one of the basic things which I think was an issue with me at that time was how to deal with the space.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Columbia University for my post-graduation, I came in contact with top American contemporary artists. Robert Motherwell was my guide in Columbia, and Hans Hofmann, and Barnett Newman, and Paul Jenkins, and you see, I used to, spend time with them and talk to them and try to understand the psychic behind the American abstract expressionism. And I found that they all talked about space. And I was very cynical about that, because when I went to America, I have already studied the miniature paintings of India. I mean, the way they handled the space, of course, on a very small scale. But I thought that use of space in Indian miniature painting was far superior than what the American artists were doing. I mean, Rothko was very close to me, Mark Rothko, and I saw partly his works, and Frank Stella, he interacted quite a bit in the village. So it was a very exciting period in American art, and these people were very hard working, you see, and they knew what they were doing. They were so confident. And then this idea of space came back to me when I was probing and searching, and I realized that let me go beyond the Indian miniature painting, the way they distributed the space. If I remove the physical elements from the miniature painting, and I just, focus on the space distribution, I realized that there is a scope for me to find some kind of a direction if I try to experiment with that. And I did. And then my gallery in New Delhi saw them after a year, and I did some work on wood, take wooden pieces and put them together and try to play with them to see whether this is space is good or this is. It was so easy. You take a piece of wood and put on a board and change the placement and find that how the space multiplies, how the space changes from one one kind of an expression to another kind of the horizontality, the verticality. So I was playing around with wood and I made quite a few paintings on that, which were never exhibited, but picked up by people one by one. And then my gallery, Kumar Gallery in New Delhi, which was one of the top galleries in India at that time, he came and he looked at my work and he was fascinated. And he said, look, I am going to give a show. First show of my season will be yours. And I said, are you crazy? you are aim to make money and you think you can show them around and sell them? Nothing doing, let me live with them and see where I go. So next day he came, no, nothing doing, I am going to take all of them, I am going to buy all of them, and then he would have no right to say yes or no, and he did that. And he had an exhibition. I remember opening at 9 o'clock in the night because so I went at 9 o'clock in the night. He said that people will come after dinner and relax and this and that. Because usually no exhibition open except maybe Museum of Modern Art, And I went there with quite some apprehension, and I found that he has sold everything. So I couldn't believe it.
That was a confirmation in your style.
I don't know. I think I don't know whether the people were able to understand the intricacies of what I was trying to create. I was trying to make assemblies of various experiences of mine until that time and create a new kind of image. But they probably saw them on the face value, you see.
Right.
They look very attractive, they look new, they have not seen things like that before in their life. And Kumar cashed from that. He was a good businessman. And I got a lot of confidence, I should admit. Even the media also said very nice things about my exhibition. Even people thought that this man who has lost track has found something which is, very important for Indian art.
Right. So later, a couple of years later, so by this time your personal style was taking off, you met Swami Muktananda. I know there's a story in that. Can you retell it?
Well, I was teaching in the School of Planning and Architecture. I was teaching architects basic design and visual fundamentals, the course which I designed for them. I was not an architect, I was an artist. I am an artist. But I tried to work out a program which will help the architects, students, to understand the basic principles of visual design. Not entirely in the way Paul Klee designed, worked it out, or Kandinsky spoke about, but something which incorporated the Indian thought and Indian requirements. So I gave them exercises in what you call media, techniques, materials, and able to draw, plus able to compose, understand the color. So I was very busy with the students and I enjoyed it a lot. And I had a fellow teacher to help me in the class, Kiran Day, very well-known artist. He is not alive anymore. And he was also my teacher in the art school in Delhi. So we were very good friends. We worked for about 10 years together. He as a visiting teacher, I am as the head of the art department. So I got a call from a friend of mine from America, Gina Lali. She is a Kathak dancer who studied Kathak in India and a very good friend. And she became disciple of Baba Muktananda in Ganeshpuri near Mumbai. And she called me that I have talked to Baba about you and I have talked to him about the kind of art you do. And he is very anxious to meet you. Can you come over right now? Because he is having a meeting with his followers in Lodi State in New Delhi. And I said, no, I am taking class. I am not able to come over. And she said, think twice, because this is a nice occasion to meet Baba Muktananda. And I was already aware of quite a few spiritual gurus in India, because when I came back and I started this movement in my work of assimilating geometry and so many other things to create a new vision, I wanted to know, according to the yogic principles, what my art means. I mean, does it mean that I am doing physical yoga, like Hatha Yoga, working on a physical level to create images and express myself? Does these images involve Jnana Yoga, the intellectual level? Does my journey involve the emotional level, which in yoga is called the Bhakti Yoga? Or is it touching some way the spiritual level, which is called the Raj Yoga, the ultimate in the yogic system? So I wanted to understand the possibility about making paintings which can touch spirituality. But before that, I had to understand what is spirituality in terms of the Indian culture through the yoga or spiritual gurus. So I made contact with them, I met them, I discussed this. Quite a few famous names, including Mahesh Yogi. And I did not get any answer, and I was frustrated because they were talking mostly about meditation, self-realization, surrendering to the Almighty, curb your aspirations. You see, those kind of noble ideas. But my concern was very different. I wanted to know specifically, is it possible to make a spiritual painting? I don't think I got any answer, so I was very frustrated. But I came to know one thing through this contact, that making Krishna or Rama or Hanuman or Madonna or Jesus Christ doesn't mean that you become a spiritual painter. As a matter of fact, You are not even an artist, you become an illustrator, you see. And I did not want to become an illustrator. So when I got this offer, I was not very sure if I would get something out of it. So I fought her off. I went back to the class and Biren said, what was this call for? I said, going to see Baba Muktananda. And he said, let's go. I will come, we will go. So I said, well, who will take care of the class? So I had another couple of assistants to help me. So, and the class was on a project, so we could go. So within 10 minutes, I was on my way to see Muktananda. And when Muktananda saw me, the first thing he said, "Oh Brahman, so you finally come." Which surprised me because how he came to know that I was not coming and finally I came. And it happened quite a few times later in our contact that I didn't want to go and he has sent a word for me to come. And finally I reached him, you see, quite a few times. And he teased me also that if I want to get you, I will get you anytime. So, and then I took my slides, of course, Gina has said that please bring your slides because he wanted to see them. And he saw them and he was very pleased. He started laughing like crazy. And there was a very eminent audience on that morning because it was a very special gathering for highly intellectual people. I recognized directors and eminent people in the Delhi society sitting as disciples in front of Baba, and Baba was sitting on a golden chair, you see, with two disciples fanning him. It was quite a scene, you know. So he started laughing and he would see a slide and he would start laugh and laugh and laugh. So finally I looked at Biren Dev and gave a signal where we are. I mean, is he crazy or something? So Biren Dev said, quiet. So finally I asked him, what is so funny, Baba? And then anyway, we had a dialogue and he explained to me that my paintings are of very high level, and in the yogic journey I have crossed several levels to be able to conceive those kind of colors. He called it a Neelam level, that when you cross through your meditation and yoga, you reach a point which is called the Neelam point, and beyond that you see wonderful colors which are not available normally in the universe. So, I mean, not about universe, but in what you see every day. So he said that I have crossed that level, and that makes me very happy. So I said, Baba, that's all right, but nobody understands my work. And if they don't understand, they won't buy my work. If I am not able to sell them, I can't even buy art materials to paint them. What to talk about everything else? So he said in his very rustic but very clear-cut answer that when you make a house, you use bricks. And bricks are cheap, but you can also make houses with the stone. And stone is not easily found and it is costly. But the same stone can become a diamond. And there are people, and the price of diamond is thousand times more than a piece of stone.